My name is Fretwell, and what if the single biggest way to reduce stress, to solve problems, or even reach goals is by simply asking questions? Disconnection is the biggest epidemic of our time. When we feel alone, every challenge multiplies, every goal becomes harder, and we often overlook our most powerful resource, which is real human connection. My name is Brian Fretwell. I'm the host of Finding Blueberries Live, a brand new style of podcast. And for the next hour, we're not going to just talk about connection. We're going to do our best to experience it. How we'll do that is with live guests sharing a challenge, a problem, or even a goal they're looking to achieve. But instead of me prescribing solutions or giving advice, what I'll be doing is asking questions in an attempt to co-create genuine clarity for both of us. By the end, they and hopefully you may discover a fresh insight. You may find yourself with less stress or anxiety, or simply feel more connected to a stranger you've never met. My hope is that in this process, we're all able to identify, create, and experience more moments of connection together, because I very much believe through the work we've been doing in the last 5 years and the work we've done in the years before, that if we're able to start with connection, if we're able to see connection as the most powerful tool in our toolbox and use it more consistently, more consciously, and more precisely, maybe, that so many of the issues that we struggle with become less overwhelming because we don't feel like we're approaching them alone. Today we have a really cool outline. So I got a guest I'm really excited about, somebody who's been a part of this process for, well, really since the beginning, quite frankly, who's very closely associated with it. And then some people, hopefully, that'll be jumping on as call-in guests, quote unquote call-in. To do that, there is the link, and I'll try to put the link in different comment sections so that you can jump on live when that's happening, or when that time comes. We'll do the planned guest first and then go to the other guests as we go. Ren, I think you pulled yourself on screen, and I'm not sure if you're meant to do that. So, but so what we'll do is we'll start with a planned guest with a specific topic. And so with the planned guests, they don't know what the topic is. I'm creating the topic based on my relationship with them. So I just like to have a little, not anxiety, but a little like intrigue in this. And then after we have the conversation with the planned guest, that is going to be based on one of the ideas behind connection, maybe something that we research and study, the planned guests will have the opportunity to share a challenge or something you're working on for clarity, or just hang out and be kind of the co-host for the other live call-ins. And so I'll put a link. There's a link here, a link to our StreamYard where you can kind of join us. It'll put you in the kind of guest room area, and then when we're ready for kind of the live call-ins, you can raise your hand. So with that, that kind of clear outline, we'll have the planned guests, a couple of unplanned guests, and the idea is that we have a few conversations where we're able to see ourselves and other people, and have a really good just conversation and a different way of looking at connection. So with that, I think we'll be talking to fill up space, and what I want to do is actually bring up our first guest, Brie Zoller. Now, Brie, I have known for quite a bit of time. We worked together for a while, and prior to Finding Good, and then we also worked together in Finding Good until about a year and a half ago. And she was very vital in creating and building so much of the framework that we use every day. So as the third guest, excited to have her on. So now I'm going to throw you on stage, Brie, and hey.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah. So Brie, welcome. Just as a bit of a brief introduction, there's always the like, what do you do now? What brought you to this? Just tell people who you are in whatever way you're comfortable with telling people who you are. How about that?
I don't know who I am anymore, but my name is Brie Zoller. And I'm a two-time business owner. I love helping people grow their businesses. I love growing my own businesses. I love pushing my own boundaries. I really dislike getting uncomfortable, but I still do it anyway.
Right.
Which I feel like is just like a daily occurrence now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the constant discomfort. Yeah. Well, we'll have plenty of opportunity for that today. I noticed because when we were talking kind of before the call, I noticed that I told you there was going to be a topic specific to you, and I could see like the anxiety coming up, which isn't necessarily my intention there, but one of the reasons, and we spoke about this a little earlier, but I think it's really important to share with those listening. One of the ideas behind having a topic that is specific to the guest or you, right, that you don't know about, is to highlight one of the ways in which we talk to people about building connection, which is this broad term we often refer to as selfish listening, right? Or rather, like when we ask somebody about their experience, identifying what we're interested in that experience is something we often miss, right? We generally ask about somebody's experience with just a broad, open, just sort of like I did earlier, like tell people who you are, based on that, or more specifically, like when somebody comes home, we say, "How was your day?" Right? We're just broadly asking them about their experience because we want to make them feel better. We might want to know about their experience, but we haven't defined what it is about the experience that we value. And by not defining it, we can actually indirectly leave the person feeling less valued, or rather, in the case with like, "How was your day?" We get the same kind of amount of energy in return as we've asked, meaning, "How was your day?" And they say, "Fine." If we change that to "What was the most interesting part of your day?" based on our understanding that there are interesting things in your day, we send that message. And so being able to kind of identify the topic in that way, I'll even maybe start it with kind of identify the topic through a question, right? So for my first question for you, Brie, then, is how have you, tell me how you've been able to be someone that can create like really clear priorities and follow through on them very consistently. Which, by the way, the topic for the day is priorities. And we're going to talk about how engaging conversations about priorities can lead to conversations about appreciation. But so go ahead. I'd love to hear your response.
That's interesting because I don't know that I haven't thought about that. but I can give you a clear answer of like what I did yesterday and something that I did last week, where I had a day where I've got a lot of stuff on my list. I've got a lot of things I need to do. And basically what I go through is, what are the things that have to get done by a certain point? So that's like one methodology of like, what are the things that absolutely need to be done by midday today or the end of the day today? And what are the things that, would be nice to be done, but they can also get done tomorrow? So that's sort of developing that prioritization list. And then on my phone in the Notes app, I create a checklist and I actually check things off. So that feels really good. And these are only on the days where I'm feeling overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that's on my plate.
So I hear here is the things that have to be done. And this might be just my own, neurodiversity kind of speaking in here. But like my first question is like, what do you mean have to? Because I can say have to all day long. And my brain's like, yeah, you don't have to do anything. Like,
sure. Like vacuuming my house today, that does not have to be done.
Okay.
But I've got a client deliverable. Like they're expecting delivery by the certain point. That's the have tos for,
yeah. So that's the point there, right? Like, what clicks that for you? What's the thing that like allows you to move from like, this is the thing I put on the list to like, because you said that, and my experience with you is like when it hits the have to button, you do it, right? And so for those that don't know, Brie and I worked together for a long time in a couple of different environments, and so my reason for asking this question is because it almost like envious of that, of you, like being able to like, okay, I put it on the priority list and I'm actually going to do it.
Yeah. And I think an element of it too is it gives me anxiety not doing it. I think that's the other thing is that's also a mechanism to help reduce my anxiety is get the thing done that's hanging over my head.
Wow. Okay. So there's a way of like kind of looking at this of like, maybe writing the thing down so that it sparks some anxiety on one hand. But on the other hand, and this is the thing, and this is actually where I think this will really kind of, you've naturally kind of segued into how we want to talk about how setting priorities can be, or rather how talking about priorities can be a door into building appreciation. Like, tell me about that kind of like that process of how you've been able to prioritize like self-care.
It now is a habit. So that's an interesting one. And I go through phases of it. Like right now, I'm in a phase where ideally I am getting some sort of physical movement every single day, whether that is taking my dog for a walk or getting a full on workout with strength training, like run the gamut. I need to do something. And if I go more than 2 days without, I start to feel really gross. So,
Yeah.
so it started off a long time ago, like, and that particular form of self-care for myself started off a long time ago as having a goal and then working towards that goal. So I used to do triathlons and marathons and races, and I would have a goal and I would work towards that goal. Now I don't have goals that I'm working towards anymore. It's just something that I know makes me feel good and I know is really good for my health. It's really good from a longevity perspective. So it's yeah. And I feel worse if I don't do it. And so that's like the priority is, oh, I'm not feeling great. So I need to do the things.
Yeah, because that's what I heard in kind of your description, and maybe we'll kind of set back and talk about it and then jump back in and sort of like explore it, if you will. But that you said like initially you said, I have to do it because it gives me anxiety, right? But then that other piece you said that like it was sort of like I have to do it, or if I do it, I'm gonna feel better. Did you like?
Yeah.
So what is that? So if we step out, right, and this is just a step back for everybody in terms of like how we can use priorities to then amplify appreciation. I want to kind of explain it in context. Just as an example, like a CEO is going to have different priorities than a middle manager, right? An entrepreneur has different priorities than, right, somebody, a dog walker in the day, which could be an entrepreneur. I don't know if that's a great example. Anyway, each of the different priorities that they have can feel initially for all of us, like our priorities, the things that we are outlining, that we're paying attention to, that we have to do every day, can feel like tasks, can feel almost overwhelming sometimes, can feel like just this list to check off. But they also represent things that we have done and things that we have done well. The CEO doesn't have their priority, the specific priorities they have without having sort of almost earned those priorities, right? Or the middle manager or the parent or the, right, whatever priorities you have are priorities because it says something both about what you value, but it also says something about what you have done before. And that's sort of what I was picking up on when you said, the way I follow through on values is because of how it makes me, or way you follow through on priorities is because of how it makes you feel. right? So if I ask you the question, like, what have you done to earn the priorities you have today? How would you answer that?
Oh my gosh. I've worked my ass off and taken very scary chances.
Mm, yeah. What do you mean? Tell me a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I did the scary thing of starting my own business
Mm,
and then starting another one in a very different area of expertise
right.
and choosing to have a child and taking on that responsibility. Like all of these I've made these scary life-changing decisions and wanted to be successful in them
Hmm.
and put a lot of work in there. So now my priorities, like, and it's funny thinking about now even the definition of priorities when you were talking about the big picture versus like the tasks, my big picture priorities are very different than my task priorities. And yeah.
No, keep going. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me more about that. Like your big picture priority. Like, so there's a separation in those.
Absolutely. And there's a separation in them, but the task ones do inform the bigger priorities. So
Mm,
my bigger priorities are work-life balance. And I mean that in the truest sense of I am present with my daughter when I'm with her. I go on incredible family trips where we are disconnecting for an extended period of time. I love eating whole foods. So like I actually
yeah.
take the time to make meals from ingredients almost every day. And the only way that I'm able to do that, well, I shouldn't say the only way, but the way that I can do that comfortably on my own
Hmm.
terms is with this life that I've built for myself, where I am working for myself and I've got clients and I've got boundaries and I commit to doing the things that I know I can do.
So that sounds like and I think you described it broadly, but like that's this category of priorities that how would you define that category of priorities?
The bigger one,
Yeah, that like work life balance ones,
yeah,
the family ones, and that like
those priorities almost are my values.
mm,
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
maybe let's come up like if I because I'm trying to think of like how I would write this down. Like these are because these are the ones you were sharing there. Those are the ones that like fall into that have to category. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
right. And because it and what it sounds like is they are have to because they're representatives of like who you are and who you want to be.
Mhm. Yep.
So is that like a self-definition category? Is that like a I think you said like living my values category of like I guess what I'm asking is like what is that feeling when you do get to check that one off in that category?
Oh. I don't know how to describe it other than, like, I'm living my best life.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do now?
Make me cry?
If you were yeah probably yeah. If you were seeing somebody living their best life in this way, how would you describe them? Like what character trait would you get? Like they are what kind of
Oh,
person?
they're brave, they're
Mm.
they're crazy, like, in a good way.
Yeah,
'Cause I know I am. Um,
yeah.
they're they're driven, they know what they want.
Hmm.
They
I love I what's that?
confident.
Mm.
Even though I
I
don't
love that.
feel that, like, I know I'm just
Yeah.
myself right now, but
Well, I just saw it in my head as like you're describing it is like these priorities are like the effing brave ass, you know, priorities.
yeah.
Like these are the and that's where and even hearing it that way kind of helps me, like, you know, because when you initially said these are I have to, right? Like these are our have to, because like living in this way is like vital. It's like that's life-giving. Like that's not, it's because it's not a choice because I refuse to live a different way.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And all of those have tos, my tasks that I have on a day-to-day basis are they're they're feeding this life.
Mm,
It is they go hand in hand together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. So let's stop there. Because it's funny because I think initially, you know, the idea for the plan guest was we were going to talk about connection, and we just went into the conversation, which I would rather do anyway. But with that, I want to just back out of the conversation and sort of like debrief it. And what's cool is I get to debrief it with you, who understands these conversations, you know, pretty directly, and just start with like your experience of the conversation, especially given we didn't really, you know what I mean, you weren't anticipating
Yeah, I
the
wasn't
conversation.
anticipating it, and it's been a long time since we've had one of these.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so it felt great.
yeah.
Um, there were 2 points in there where you drew these connections of like it was almost defining what we didn't actually go into defining what priority was, but the different layers of priorities, and talking about like my day-to-day priorities versus my big picture priorities. I hadn't reflected on those. And I'm in a state
Mhm.
right now where I'm like in those little day-to-day priorities, and it's very stressful.
Yeah.
But being able to take a step back and reflect of like this is so I can live this life that is a priority of mine. So
Mm.
I really liked that you were able to take me on that journey of almost reframing how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. Well, and for those watching, I think what's important here, and specifically because you use the word reframing, like my intention wasn't reframing. And so like in my from my perspective, I engaging the conversation, and this is where what we call kind of connection curiosity, I think really pays a lot of dividends, is like we didn't even plan this conversation, number one, right? Like, so you know, as a plan guest, we haven't even gotten into the stuff we were going to talk about. But it was actually when you had said, like, here's these priorities, that like it was my reflection in myself of like, I am horrible with priorities. Like, I don't like, and when you said have to, like the curiosity bit was again somewhat selfish, if we want to use that term, where like the clarity that we found was the thing that I was looking for, which is like, wait, how do you make this a have to category? Right. And when you explained it in terms of like that bravery and courage, like I was able to see it through, like we have a weekly call tomorrow morning, as you're aware of, with like my three friends that this whole thing is based off, the What Went Well calls that we've had for years and years. And when I think about that, I didn't think about it as a priority, but I absolutely prioritize it because of the same reason. Like I go there because that is who I want to be. And going there makes me feel like that is who I am.
Does it
Right.
feel like a have to for you?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in a kind of a good way. And I
Yeah.
think about that, like those calls are a have to when I don't want to show up. Right. Like when I'm in my feels, you know, just, like, because I don't want to go there and talk about me. And so initially it feels like I have to do that for that. But the real have to is I don't want anybody else to show up and not have somebody there.
Does that have a negative connotation for you?
Yes. I mean, it's like it's PDA for those that aren't familiar with that term, and not the PDA of like public display of affection, persistent demand avoidance. And there's a person that I think is a guest on this podcast, or there's a guest in the audience here that has called me out on this a couple of times in the course of time. I've known this person, but it's if you tell me to do something, like I'm better at it. I can process it, but like, oh boy, like I do not. Like if somebody tells me what to do, I can feel my brain working to do the opposite. Or if they tell me I can't do something, right? Like now it's on the top of my list. Yeah.
What about like I'm very, can we do this? Can I?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think I think this might be the episode, because
Okay.
You're here and you've got the background, and people get to see like me getting pummeled with the questions, which they're not pummeling, right? They're, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So that was talking about external have tos of people saying you have to do this. And all of the things that I was talking about were my internal have tos of the things that I've committed to or the things that I want to do. So is there a difference between the external have tos versus the internal have tos for you?
Not really.
No.
Not really. And I think about it in the morning. Like I
No.
got to work out in the morning, and it's like this battle I play in my head. Like, no, I can like it sort of goes in this, like, it's sort of, even though it sounds illogical, it's like a logical pathway that, like, if I hear the have to, or there's only one way, like it doesn't actually compute for me. So it's actually almost kind of painful. It feels really false, right? Like, no, there are 1,000 ways to do whatever you want to do. And so now I'm going to show you that. And I mean, that's sort of like boiling it down. And my brain goes into like, nope, I can do it this way. And actually, like, I want to now do it this way to prove to you that I don't have to do it this way.
Okay.
And it's not even to prove to you. It's to prove to myself, to you, and anybody else that might be watching, right? Which is illogical because nobody else is watching. You know what I mean? Like, but oh man. And it's like, I think you're processing like so much of our relationship working together, but also I can kind of see that right now. But yeah, it's also, it kind of explains like how I've created a lot of this framework, is because of a lot of my frustration with how we're supposed to connect and that, and like, I think there's a different way. Yeah.
So then I'm curious, how does have to relate to priority for you? Because it sounds like it's a different thing for you.
Yeah, no, for me, priorities definitely, I struggle with them sometimes, just like, anybody else, of like, okay, what should be the priorities, and where it shows up in the framework, and kind of what the intention of the conversation starting with priority is to then amplify appreciation, right? And in that process, like, kind of trigger that internal locus of control idea. These are a priority only because I've done something to earn them as a priority. And it's the thing I have done that helps me see, oh, this isn't happening to me. This is I've created in there, right? And so I tend to have to actually go over to the appreciation side. I get to do this, right? Like the thing that'll trigger often the have to is for me is like gratitude. Like when I need to work out, or it's a running day, or I have a big run in front of me, it's like, man, I have the opportunity to do this. And therefore, like, taking that opportunity is really about like being grateful for what I have. And that for me can trigger a lot of activity. Like, like, oh, I get to do this, and doing this, like, just acknowledging that I get to do this, and then taking advantage of that is sort of my way of like, or rather feels in the moment like I'm positively impacting the world.
Is that intentional?
It's sort of a way I had to make it. I try to make it intentional. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
I just, because nothing else works, maybe. I don't know. I don't, yeah, I don't know necessarily like how I found it. I do know that that it has that it works because, and I think maybe broadly the how I found it answer is like, having been in positions where you didn't have those opportunities. You know what I mean? Like having the experiences of like, oh, those opportunities can leave in a hurry, right? Like that the idea of being able to work out in the morning, right? I've plenty of friends and times on my own when like that opportunity was gone, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. And then to with that, then to not take advantage of the opportunity is, yeah, again, it kind of is that ungrateful sort of feeling.
Interesting. I'm still curious about how they connect though, the gratitude to, I guess the lack to gratitude first is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, tell me
So
more.
like I in the times that you can't work out, in the times that like you can't do something, how does
Hmm.
that then turn to gratitude when
Oh,
you're laying in bed in the morning going, I should go for this run?
hmm, yeah. So that's the thing. If it sounds in my head like I should, like that's the trigger. Because then it's like, wait. I I don't have to do anything. And as I used to say, facilitation all the time, the only thing you have to do is poop and die, right? Not in that order. Um, but that for me, that's like the onus, right? Like I don't have to do anything. I don't should on myself at all. But like, I can do this,
Mm,
right? I get to do this. Like if I'm aware, if I'm like, if I choose right now, I get to experience something other people don't get to.
mm,
And that is kind of where it almost externalizes it for me, right? Like it's almost about being able to do these things with other people. And I very much feel that, like, and if I even use maybe like that word privilege just broadly, like that I feel it's definitely informs how I show up like in this work daily, is that I get to take risks other people might not. Part of that, I don't have kids, right? I have a wife that gives me a lot of leeway, like a lot of ability to play. And also like, I have a different like set of like I, this underlying like ability, that freedom, then almost there's almost a responsibility that comes with that. And that's the responsibility that it's not like nobody's put on me, that I get to choose, right? I get to choose how I want to impact the world. And for me, that like that that is a just a privilege, I guess, right?
mm.
Like that being able to positively impact other people, or being able to do things that might do that is a privilege, right?
Do you feel the same way for yourself? Because you're talking about now about affecting other people. Do you feel that same way when you go for your run?
How what do you mean?
Well, you said you feel the responsibility and it's a privilege that you get to do those things.
Hmm.
Do you feel the same way when you do those things for yourself?
When I'm doing them.
Okay.
Like not before. But I mean, in that,
Yeah.
like especially if we go into running, but even in this work or in writing, right? That like that when you push into like the really hard thing, that's when you get those moments of, oh wow, this is like in a really great creative moment. You come up with an analogy, or you write like the perfect sentence, which is my nerddom, like driving in, but also um, in the moment where I can think of so many moments of like running, especially with my dog now, that so this dog I've had for the last 4 years just so much enjoys being out there, and just having these moments that are like, oh, I'm here right now, I'm present, I'm smiling, they're smiling, or I'm looking at this word and I don't have an attachment to it. Like it's not, I'm excited because now I'll be able to run a race, or I'm excited I wrote this word because now it's going to go viral or something. It's just in that moment, like, you get this experience that that you almost can't share with anybody else to a degree. And I don't share those because like I don't, as much as I'm on social media and stuff, I rarely take my phone with me when I'm running, and if I do, it's just in case something happens and I'm not stranded, right? Because like those moments get to be my own, right?
Okay, well, that's beautiful.
So backing out of this, and just to kind of like bring this back, like I do want to actually, and this is where we can maybe even I know Angela and Ren are in the sidelines here. If they want to come up, we can talk about, because we kind of took most of the time, so this might be the episode. But what I want to do is actually debrief moments of connection, just and I want to do this on all of the episodes to actually help people see what it is we're trying to do here. Because if you look at this just as this conversation and without being able to see, like, there is some intentionality to this, right? Well, actually, there's quite a bit of intentionality to this, but there isn't direction per se. And that's hard to sort of grasp for people. And broadly with curiosity, I think we've all been sort of indoctrinated or disciplined into, like, I'm asking questions so that you go in this direction, or so I get these answers and I can do something with the answer. But in this case, the intentionality is clarity, and the clarity is for each of us individually, right? And the thing that we're looking for is what I kind of call these moments of connection. And it's the moment where the stories overlap. So you can call it like when I related to you, or when I saw what you were talking about through my own lens. And for me, and it's not just for me, but I think based on the research, based on sort of how we approach this, that is the moment where the feeling of connection actually arises from, right? But it's also the moment where new insights, new ideas, new opportunities arise, and where like anxiety, stress, different things can go down. So I want to talk about, and again, if Angela or Ren want to come up, they can raise their hand. I'll throw them on. But or anybody else that's listening, we still have some time if somebody wants to jump on and get thrown another question. But I want to talk about the moments of connection when I was asking you questions, and then when you were asking me questions. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You go first. I'd like to hear more.
Yeah. So we covered it briefly, but I want to really identify like when. Well, there was this like initially, going from our plan structure of like us broadly talking about connection and the idea, to me just asking like, how do you prioritize? Initially, there was like this overlap when you said, have to, but that wasn't the actual overlap. That was the thing that triggered lack of clarity for me. And what I mean by that is, like, you said this, and I had to either apply my own definition to that, which is where we often go, right? Like, oh, I know what you're talking about with have to, and now I don't have questions, but like if I lean into that curiosity there, have to means what, right? And specifically I was leaning into that because I'm like, have to is like a trigger word for me, right? But one of the, I think, more significant moments of like connection and overlap for me when you were saying that was just when you said like the words bravery and courage. I mean, because you were outlining, here are the things that matter to me, and then you defined it by bravery and courage. I like, in that moment, I like fully self-identified. Like I was like, oh yeah. If it has to do with doing the hard thing, right? To like, because this is what we're put on the earth to do. Like I was like, yep, okay, yeah, I can do that. Have to, right? Like, so that for me, that was a very strong moment of overlap. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about for you?
So
Okay.
I think tying, like in the same vein, I identified when you took out the words have to at the very beginning of our conversation, I was like, oh, that's interesting because there's something about have to for him that isn't
Yeah.
that isn't a thing for me. So then that was like I was carrying that in the back of my head until I got to ask you the questions of learning what that meant to you, because I could tell we weren't on, it was like a disconnection that we turned into a connection.
Yeah, well, and it's also what I want to ask is like, because you notice, oh, Brian's jumping down this rabbit hole, I can tell he's interested. How does that change the way then you answer the questions? Like, broadly, does it make it easier or harder?
I don't know that it changes the way that I answer the questions.
Right?
It, like, I recognize that it's there, but I'm still gonna hold on to like those are my words,
Right.
but I can explain what those words mean. I can
Yeah.
explain what it means to me, but I also want to know what it means to you.
Right. And I guess maybe where I was what I'm thinking about is actually not like easier or harder, but like in me asking for clarification in the different ways, did it feel as though I was interrogating or like, yeah. And I think that's what I like. The thing I want to point out to folks is like when we're able to kind of lead with that authentic curiosity and define the thing that we're looking for clarity on, then it doesn't come across, or it's less likely, if you will, to come across to the other person as like, interrogating them or to kick up an insecurity for them, or that we're trying to fix them or solve them. It's actually kind of made it about me, but in a way that allows it to be about us. I guess. Yeah. What were you gonna? Yeah. Tell me about the kind of that moment of connection for you.
The moment of connection for me was when, I don't know how you did it, whether it was something you said or something that you asked, but it was helping me take a step back and looking at my life. And feeling like you were seeing something in my life that I wasn't seeing. And
As I was answering the questions you were
as you
asking?
were asking
Oh,
me,
okay. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
you were seeing something that I wasn't seeing, and I was like just connecting the dots. I'm like, oh,
Right.
these little my day-to-day checklists that are stressing me out right now are actually a beautiful thing.
And
Be
I think
grateful
that's,
for them.
yeah, and I think that's such an interesting experience. Like that you think I see something that I'm just like, what the hell am I looking at, right? Like not in a negative way, but like that it can feel that way. And I think like maybe it's that like when that like authentic curiosity is there, then like it becomes easier to be like, oh, to believe it's in there, right? And for me, there is a part that I knew there was something in there, and the whole premise of the conversation was like you're amazing at prioritization, right? Like I've seen you do that in a way that sometimes just piss me off, right? Because we didn't agree on the priority, maybe, right? But that like being able to understand, like, oh wow, this is a strength, is maybe the thing that is feels like, oh, they see something in me that I don't, which is just the broader strength, right? And to that, like, absolutely. And it's actually really easy for me to see.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and what's funny is now as you were saying that, I got this image in my head of like you didn't know what you were looking at. Whereas I feel like I know what I'm looking at, and I almost picture it. So we got Lego blocks this past weekend.
Right.
So much fun. We got the big Duplo box. And what I was thinking almost was like the bin of Duplo blocks or those Legos is my life. Like I know all the blocks that are in there. I understand them. But with your questions, we like actually made something out of those blocks. We put them all together. We built something out of that so that we could clearly see my life.
Yeah.
That's the analogy that I just pulled up in my head.
Yeah, I like that because it's sort of like, as I hear it, it is kind of in as I've looked at this and kind of engaged in this, it's that thing that we have to do with each other. And what I mean by that is like our brain doesn't necessarily have a reason to put those Legos together on our own, right? Because the our brain kind of has these assumptions, or like, oh, they're priority, like there isn't anything put together. And so like being able to lean into that, hey, tell me about that, then kind of puts both our brains into like, oh, okay, there's value in doing this activity and putting these together, right? But if I'm by myself, why do I need to put them together if I don't feel like anything's broken,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's a problem or if it's going to benefit, versus like now we can put them together because it's going to benefit the other person asking. And then in the process, we both get benefit, right? Like in the process, we both find some clarity. Yeah.
And can I also mention, so you did mention like in preparation for this, like maybe we'll talk about a challenge that I'm experiencing. My challenge, and I know this is like your magic. My challenge that I was going to talk about was how overwhelmed I feel right now with all the different things that I have on my checklists.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
And now I'm feeling
And
so
how has that changed?
it has changed completely. I feel so grateful. I feel, like all of these things I have on my list, they're going to be done by the end of the week. And it's so that I can live this beautiful life that I'm living. And
what would you say changed for you to feel like that?
My perspective. It's almost, it's like I went from the very granular perspective of just like, this is my day to this is my life. Yeah.
And I love how you define that, like that sort of insular, if you will, like really, I want to say short-sighted, but I don't want to say that negatively, but like when the fight or flight system is up and I'm feeling disconnected, like my perspective is short. Like it's this window that's in front of me, because like when I'm being chased by a bear, perspective goes like this. You only need to see what's 10 feet in front of you and get out of that. And what connection does, like that overlap, those moments of overlap do, is dampen that fight or flight so that now I can see a bigger picture. It's not the answers that do that, right? Meaning like it wasn't like some solution I gave you or some like, it was actually being able to, as you say, like put the Legos together, because now I have access to that part of the brain. And now we actually have a reason to put them together. And now I can own this because I'm not alone with it anymore. Right. And what is almost hard to communicate to people is like how necessary that dynamic is for us. But we've sort of been conditioned that like to get out of this like very, tight fight or flight, here's what the priority is right in front of us. We just need the new solution and the new strategy or the new direction. And there are times when we need that. But if we start with connection and we look for those moments of overlap, what I've experienced is that like you need answers and solutions a fraction of the amount that we think, but we just have to be able to know how to have the conversation and engage that conversation, which I'll be the first to admit, it's hard to do when you're in it, right?
It's very hard to do when you're in it.
Yeah. How about when you were asking me questions, moments of overlap for you?
Overlap or connection?
Yes, connection.
I guess what I loved about that conversation and where I felt connected in it was I just really wanted to understand your definitions of it and of priority and of the have tos. And it was not selfishly motivated. It was not, like I was trying to fix anything or trying to correct your perspective on how to. I just really wanted to know. And I like that feeling of just being able to ask you questions to understand it for several minutes.
Was there a part of it that that you related to more than another?
Probably when you brought it to gratitude, that's
Mm,
when I began to relate to it, was
mhm.
because I think I have similar elements of when that is also a grounding feeling for me, is
Right,
gratitude. It's a difficult, and again, the same thing, it's difficult to do when you're in fight or flight. And
right.
it's hard to just be like, okay, let me pull up my gratitude journal and I'll get
Right.
myself out of this stress. Like,
Yeah.
but but I that felt like the you know the
Yeah.
same thing for me.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like, for you, gratitude, and for me, the bravery, and
Mhm.
just two different ways of kind of saying the same thing, which is like, what is it that we have to do, right? Like, and that, like, each of us kind of create our own definition of that,
Mhm.
and the more we're able to kind of like be like find that clarity in that definition, right? Like, oh, here's what have to is for me, here's what have to is for you, then we can do the things that we have to do more often, potentially,
Yep.
right? And as we kind of come into the closing parts of the podcast, I think, like, going back to sort of where we started, this idea of, like, our priorities being a sort of like a signal of the thing, like appreciation, right? So for you, the appreciation was that bravery and the courage, right? Like, these priorities are representative of these things I value, that I've curated, that I've built my sort of life around, right? And for me, the priorities represent very similar. Like, here's who I want to be, and here's how I want to show up in the world. And the more we're able to consciously identify, like, this is a priority because, like, this priority represents this, like, that doesn't make it less stressful. I mean, the experience of stress can go down for sure, right? That doesn't make less priorities, right? But it does contextualize them in a way that is more in line with who we are, and that increases that internal locus of control feeling, number one. But it also allows us, I think, to appreciate that, right? To be able to say, like, oh yeah, I have a list of crap to do today that I've earned, right?
Mhm.
And I guess even more than that, like, this list of stuff I do, like, I have, represents who I'm trying to be, right? And therefore, every time I check one off, it's who I am, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and being able to share the stories back and forth, outline, and I'm not doing that alone. Yeah. Any thoughts on that to wrap up? Man, this was great. I have to tell you, like, like, we had like, some guests, and I know this. I'm a big fan of fluid podcasts, right? Like, we go where the conversation is, and I'm not surprised that you and I were able to dive down. What I didn't tell the audience is we used to have a competition of who we could make who cry the most, and I kind of won that today.
You did.
Um,
I teared.
uh, but yeah, I'm curious, yeah, any closing thoughts, ideas, or insights from the day.
I mean, just on a personal level, like, this couldn't have come at a better time for me. I
Mhm.
really needed this today. And it was even one of those things too. Same thing that you have on your Wednesday calls, where I'm looking at this like block on my calendar going, man, I could do so much work with this time. But I'm
Yeah.
so glad that I was here, which which I also see in other things in my life. Like,
Mm.
occasionally I will book something on my calendar at 7 o'clock at night, which,
Mhm.
being a mom and owning businesses, doing something at 7 o'clock at night is, like, not generally the most energetic time you're gonna get me.
Right.
But when I go out and do those things, and I do create connections, and I do get to chat with
Mm.
my friends, and I'm dragging myself to get there, but it's a good thing. Like, add that to my have to list, because
Yeah, because that's
because
the Bravery list, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, we're gonna do this. So, yeah, I'm just feeling really good. You did it again, Brian.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I think I wrote this, in our email the other day of like the idea that like for me, this podcast is very much like, we can look at different measurements of success, right? And I think honestly, I tried podcasts in different forms before, and I think the idea of success was that external, like, is it viewable, is it watchable, do people like it? And I don't have any control over those things. I can influence those, but for me, the definition of success in the podcast is, was the conversation beneficial to us both? Because if it was, then it's likely to be beneficial to others. But even if it's not, right, then the time was worthwhile and valuable. So I want to thank you for making the hour worthwhile and valuable, and for showing up even though you're like, I have a bunch of other stuff to do, and then having to suffer through the like, and he doesn't even have his damn mic on in the first 4 minutes. Most of you won't see that because we'll edit it out, but we had a false start introduction because I did not have my microphone on. But we're getting better at it. So thank you, Brie, for making this episode of the podcast just super fun for me. I was looking forward to it all week, and it was even better than I imagined. Thank you, everyone else, for listening. Thanks, Ren and Angela, for showing up. We're gonna do an edited version of this onto YouTube and that, so other people can join. My apologies to anybody that might have been on Instagram. For some reason, I couldn't get it to stream on Instagram today, but we'll improve that in the future. But as a closeout each and every time, I just want to remind folks that the reason we're doing this is to help people understand that, like, there are too many things in our lives, challenges, stressors, goals to achieve alone. But there is nothing that is too big that we can't do together, right? So thank you for joining the Finding Blueberries live podcast. We'll see you next Tuesday at noon Mountain Time. Live stream, hopefully on Instagram. We were on YouTube for the first time today. And we'll add some other destinations as we go. Feel free to reach out for me, Brian at findinggood.com. If you want to be a guest, we can send you a link. We'll have it on YouTube so that you can schedule when to watch it, and hopefully have you on as a guest or have you on as an observer in the future. Thanks again, everybody. We're going to sign off and look forward to seeing you all next time.